It's the talk with my good friends. No, it's the talk with my good friends. All your friends come and gather around now. We're gonna have a real good time. Talk with my good friends. It's the talk with my good friends. It's the talk with my good friends. Get all your friends and gather around now. We're gonna have a real good time. Talk with my good friends.
Come on in the room. Come on in the room. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Talk with Micah and Friends. And yes, it is me, Micah. I'm just looking around for something really quickly. Okay. Hopefully everyone's able to see me. I'm actually looking down at my phone to make sure that I'm good. Looks like I am. So thank you to everyone for the support for the last 6.5 years of me doing this for this platform, the LGBTQIA plus community. As I said last weekend, I felt like we needed a platform that is created by us and for us. You know, we don't have to have outsiders coming in and trying to create something that that we can do our very, do on our own. So I created this show December 2013, 6.5 years ago, and we've done many moves. We've had many interviews with advocates, activists, icons, legends in the community, many different panel discussions. So today's show is titled T equals Trans, We Are More Than a Letter. Back in the summer of 2017, I had a show where we focused on the T within the LGBTQIA plus spectrum. I felt that we needed to highlight the trans community in a positive light, as well as to educate our community and those not in direct affiliation with the community. The conversation opened up so many questions, topics, and dialogue that we needed this conversation to continue. And almost 3 years later, we are back, but there's so much that has happened that has, transcended through time or through the last 3 years that we need to have a conversation about. I want to make sure that we continue the conversation no matter how long it was. And I think that we have this time to utilize it, especially in the COVID-19 pandemic. If you're listening, you have tuned in at the right time. If you're watching, you tuned in at the right time, because this particular broadcast will then also move over to blogtalkradio.com, as well as Apple Podcasts, where it will be an audio version. Today's or tonight's or this evening's show, I promise, should be one of great conversation, understanding, education, leadership, and even one of inclusion and not exclusion. So with that said, there's so much that we want to uncover and chat about that I don't want to hold up the show any longer. I have asked my co-host, Toya Washington, to come back and to moderate. Toya was a part of the first show, What's the Tea in LGBTQ. She was also a part of my Candid Conversation show on last week, got rave reviews. And so I wanted to make sure that we bring her back, but we bring her more back as a co-host for this particular, guest co-host for this particular show, to come back, host, moderate, along with me, inviting some ladies who she felt and I felt would be the best for the conversation on this evening. So we will go ahead and start out with the intros, and then we'll move further into our show. Sorry, I talk a little fast, so I have to slow down. Forgive me. So we will start off with my co-host. She'll provide her name, where she resides, her pronouns, and what is it that she does for the community, and anything that she's involved in. So give me 1 second, and I'll bring her on. Give me 1 second. There she goes. Hold on. Let me unmute you. And also, Toya, before you start, please visit StreamYard.com/Facebook if you would like your name and your comment to appear on the live Facebook show feed. I actually tried it out. So the only thing you have to do is go to, Chrome or Safari, put in StreamYard.com/Facebook. It'll then ask you to give permission. It'll, grant permission for StreamYard to, have permission for your Facebook app. And then basically anyone that comments under this live, or even if you're on Facebook and even if you're on YouTube and you're commenting, I'm able to bring that particular comment onto the screen for our ladies to discuss or answer. So let me remove this banner here, and then we'll go ahead with Miss Washington. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Micah, for allowing us to use this platform to have this much needed conversation that will hopefully bring some education and enlighten those that are not totally familiar with what it is we do and the roles and how they can be a part as well. I'm Toya Washington from New Orleans, Louisiana, by way of Atlanta, by way of Memphis, now in Birmingham, Alabama. The Director of Programs for Take Resource Center. I'm also one of the participants of the Leadership Masterclass sponsored by AIDS United and the Holistic Empowerment Center. Most importantly, I'm an advocate in the community. I've been involved in pageantry and ballroom for a numerous amount of years. And because of that connection and because of that subculture and because of the need for the subculture, I've been blessed to meet some wonderful individuals that have cultivated and shaped my life in many different forms. And because of that, and because of our relationship, I invited some of these ladies who hold a very special place in my heart that mean so much to me, that I met through one of the subcultures, which is pageantry. That was our connection at that time. And since then, we have all made some changes and some shifts. And I just wanted to bring those ladies aboard and actually give them an opportunity to share this moment with me so we can further educate our community.
Okay, thank you so very much. Now let's go ahead and go to our first guest. Let's go ahead and bring her on. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I am Tatiana Williams, the Executive Director for Trans Inclusive Group, which is located in South Florida, where our primary community that we serve is Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties. We provide an array of services for transgender and non-binary individuals. That includes HIV testing, that includes case management, linkage to trans affirmative care. I'm involved in a lot of organizations and a lot of stakeholders in the community. I'm a part of the Broward County Health Department Transgender Advisory Group. And recently I just joined the Transgender Council for Equality Florida, which is the largest state LGBTQ organization that fight for political rights here in the state. I'm a part of AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I'm also a part of the Flux Board, which is an extension of AIDS Healthcare Foundation, which is geared towards the transgender community. And I'm here and I'm ready to have good, entertaining, and great conversation.
Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and bring on Jasmine. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jasmine Tasaki. I am from Memphis, Tennessee. I currently reside in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm the Executive Director of We Care Tennessee, which is an organization that specifically supports trans women of color who do sex work and use drugs. I am involved in a lot of organizations within the community, such as SONG, Black AIDS United. I am also the leader of the Memphis affiliate chapter of BTAN. Yeah, I'm a former Miss Westland. I'm also a part of the masterclass sponsored by AIDS United. Shout out to Valerie Spencer. Yeah, but basically what we do at We Care Tennessee is we address the social determinants of health. So we don't do testing, and we do referrals for testing. We do PrEP referrals, and we do referrals for treatment for HIV, but we try to address things like homelessness and unemployment, and just try to support sex workers and trans women who use drugs, because we know that that is not often a voice that is lifted up within the community. I would like to thank you for letting me be a part today, and shout out to everybody on the panel. I love you all, and I hope we have some very informative conversation today.
Thank you so much. And let's go ahead and move over to get you muted and get over to Tatiana Moulton. There you go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tatiana Moulton. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I am a senior capacity building specialist for the Centers for Disease Control, currently working with San Francisco Community Health Center, Chicago's office. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I think that's all the questions.
Okay, great. So we are back. I'm going to unmute everyone. I'm going to also let Toya go ahead and start our very first topic, which is about self-healing. So go ahead, Toya, take it away.
One of the first things that I wanted to just really talk about and just unpack is, like I said, we met in the pageantry arena, and because of everything that's going on now, we would just like to offer some support and some light to our sisters that are involved in community and in the pageantry community, and just make sure that we support them and make sure that we assist them however we can. My first question is there a difference between who you are and your purpose in life now, or is there a difference between who you are and your purpose in life now as opposed to when we met years ago?
I'll go first. Yes. When I met you years ago, my purpose, I always knew that God had a special plan for me. And I always was involved in community and like gay families and even my biological family. But yeah, my purpose was unidentified then. And back then I was just kind of existing and floating. A lot of times when people are young, they want to experience things. So I think that I experienced the streets, and I limited my experience in life and education and even pageantry. In that time when we first met, I was not focused on anything that was conducive. I was just kind of like going with the flow, just trying to feel things out and just realizing what it was to really be grown. So yes, now I move in a very different way. Everything that I do is purposeful and it has meaning behind it. And I hope that it has some impact as well. But I do think that it kind of aligns with how I used to be. I still always want to help people and pour into people's lives. So yeah, and I love God the whole time. So yeah, they tie together, but definitely it has changed.
Who's next?
I can feel like a genuine connection that I can't explain, because I kind of like move in the spirit, if you may. And there's some people that I connect to, and then there's some people that I don't. That doesn't mean that I dislike an individual, but there's just some people that I connect to. But I'll say this. I didn't learn until later in life what my purpose actually was, but I do know when I was young, when I was young, my grandfather used to call me captain. And when he would call me captain, it's because when things that would happen around the house, or something would happen with other siblings or other family members, he would always come to me and ask me what happened, because he knew that I would be able to provide the feedback that he needed to judge the situation. As I got into my adulthood, and not trying to be anything, just giving help and helping individuals, I was put in a position and people started looking at me as a leader and wanted my mentorship and saying, hey, would you be my mother? People were saying this to me and I'm like, mama, I can't be nobody's mother, but this is what they were saying to me because they seen something in me that I didn't see within myself. I take that to community. Me working in community, and I was having a conversation earlier about my role in Trans Inclusive Group. And I said I didn't necessarily ask for the role. What I was put in a position and I do the work, and that's what came of the work. And I ended up where I am today. In life, I don't necessarily set expectations, but I just move in a way to push myself to be the best that I can be. And that puts me in a lot of position. And that even correlates with me with pageantry. I'm one of those individuals where people would always say, why is she doing this? They're not going to accept this from her. They don't want that. That'll never happen to her. And when people tell me that it's something we can't do, and as a Black trans woman, oftentimes than not, we are always told what we can't do. So I was always determined to make sure that we were doing what they say that we couldn't do. And I was able to exceed in that on that platform as well. So for me, I do feel that my purpose in life is to help uplift the community. And I'll say to you, when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to this work, it's a lot that comes from out of you. There's a lot of emotional labor that goes into this work. And there's many times when I came home and I said to myself, oh, I don't have time for this. I can't put up with this. But I would look back in the mirror and say, if you don't, who's going to do it? I'm in South Florida, and there's very few Black trans women that lead at the capacity that I lead. Outside of Araya Lester, we really don't have much here. We have a few other new up-and-coming individuals that are part of the work, but we don't have many. And if we need people that understand what the work look like, and that's how I got here. I don't ask for the platform just so happens to happen.
Thank you so very much. And we're going to go to Tatiana M.
I will honestly say, Toya, interesting that you asked this question. I don't think that there is a difference in between who I am now and when we met. I have always felt, even in my mess, that I've always had a purpose. I will say that I feel like I am walking more purposeful in what it is for my purpose in life. And so when I talk about that, and I know that you know this very dearly, I would have never envisioned almost over 20 some years ago that I would be a licensed missionary, that I would be working within the Centers for Disease Control and doing the work that I am doing and stepping into the purpose that God has ordained for my life then. And so, but I have always known that there was a particular calling, and that calling is very related back to community. My grandmother raised us to care for others. I can remember times when she would invite people in off the streets to have something to eat when we ourselves were eating one meal. So like I said, I don't think there's a huge difference. I think that my focus is more purposeful, and I am stepping into and walking into the steps that have been ordered for me by God.
Thank you. Go ahead, Joy.
For me, I have to answer the question myself. I do believe that my life is repurposed. So some of the things that I did that I'm doing now is repurposed. Those were things that were always in me. And as Tatiana, my sister Tatiana Moulton mentioned, that it's a difference when you walk within the spiritual realm and us being in the human realm. I mean, we're spirits living human experience, but most importantly, when you are aware and cognizant of your spiritual journey, it repurposes and changes the things that you did once before. So a lot of the things that I was doing back then, I still do now, but it's repurposed. And I've learned how to take the skill sets that I've learned within the communities, within the work that I do daily, which is making sure that trans women of color have the things that they need to make sure that they navigate safely and make sure that their needs are being met as they safely navigate here in Birmingham, Alabama, and abroad. And I'm thankful that you ladies have been supportive and been a part of my life. And some of the things that we have shared with each other have changed my life. And I just want to use this moment and just make sure to let other individuals know that everything that we do has a purpose, and life to me is about connecting the dots. I always think about, I was walking down the street and I found 5 cents. Then I walked down the street and I found 15 cents. And I'm just so conscious and awareness that I'm picking up these things. And I never knew the reason why I was gathering and developing and picking up and holding on to these things. But there came a moment when the thing that I needed costed the amount of all the things that I have collected along my way. And that's when it starts to make sense for me that everything that we get and everything that we acquire, it's for a purpose. And in that moment, that purpose is going to reveal itself. One of the things that I like to talk about is how hard it is for us to get past ourselves and all of the things that we're dealing with to where we can focus on the holistic journey and healing of others. What are some of the things that you had to shed from yourselves in order to be aware of your role as a leader in this community?
And also, if you're watching, my guess, if you happen to be watching from another phone or tablet, this particular broadcast, you might want to exit because there's like some feedback that I'm getting. So let me go back to Toya. Toya, was this the question, basically, what we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So has living in your truth help you to identify your life's purpose, or has living in your truth forced you to make a change or shift towards your purpose in life?
I would honestly say, first of all, that was a very thoughtful question. I will say, kind of going back to what you were talking about, Toya, all of the things that you have collected along the way, there are things that had occurred within my life, even throughout prison incarceration, that those experiences helped to shape the work that I am doing today. And it helped to equip me to deal with a lot of the situations and circumstances that I have encountered along this work. And so when thinking about that, it is like, it's just like you said, I didn't realize then why I was collecting these things, why I was going through these things, and how it would kind of propel me and shift me. And in ways that I would see some of my counterparts and even some of my sisters where they would break down in certain moments. And I'm just like, you're going to get through this. And so it has truly helped shift me towards my purpose in life in a way that, again, like I hadn't imagined then. And so that is why it is important for people when you're encountering circumstances and situations that you may not be able to see yourself out of at that time. And I'm one of those people to always tell people, continue to push. Continue to push. You can't abort this even before it gets to that point. You have to continue to push. And so that is why I feel that a lot of the things and circumstances and situations and even people that I have met have helped me to kind of, in that way to shift me towards my purpose in life.
I wanted to say kind of the same thing for me. I think that everything that I went through was necessary, and I went through a lot of catastrophic things on my journey to getting where I am today. But I think that those things had to be that catastrophic for God to get my attention. And ultimately, like my habits and the things that I did, they were that deep and that toxic that I needed those events to happen, like and also for some people to pass on, also meeting new people. I know when Tanisha Cassadine died, that was a big moment for me because I knew, for me, I was like, okay, I have to do everything on my own now, as far as like nobody else will know all of my deep dark struggles and secrets, and I won't be able to go to anybody. I'll have to stand on my own and lean on God. So yeah, for me, those things did help me to shed a lot of toxic behavior leading up to doing this work. Now, doing the work does not make me shed toxic behavior. Sometimes doing the work has made me pick up toxic behavior again, because of the emotional labor and a lot of the heartache that goes into, being there to support people through things that you have either been through or even sometimes still going through, because this is a calling that we have when you do this work, and there's no stop button on like struggle, trauma, any of that. So we're all currently healing ourselves while we're doing this work. So yeah, I think that it's necessary, but I think that the shedding of my flesh and of my worldly ways, for lack of better terms, happened before I got to the work mostly.
Gotcha. That's deep. Because I think that before Tatiana said something, I think, we don't, I'll say I and others, we don't necessarily think about the fact that when you are in this type of work, that you do carry a burden, that you do carry all the suffering and everything that everyone else is going through. And then you have to also go through things yourself, so I just never even thought of that. But I have met advocates and activists who, once they get into the work, it's like I even see the change. Like sometimes you all may not see the change, or you may see the change eventually, but someone that's on the outside looking in, I see the change. I see the change in every one of you ladies, because I followed you, I've known you for quite some time. And so I see the change. And I just have to say, even before, we go forward, thank you. Because someone has to, Toya and I talked about standing in the gap, and we're not going to go in that conversation, through that conversation, but I appreciate and thank you all for standing up and being leaders. And we'll move to that leadership conversation in a second, but I just want to take this time to say thank you, because not only are you standing up for trans women, but you're standing up for the community. So I appreciate that. So Tatiana, go right ahead.
Well, I'll say I've always lived my life unapologetically, regardless of how people felt about the way I lived, coming from the South. Especially when we started to, me and friends that started to kind of migrate in pageantry or enter those arenas, people would always look at us and have this like, where these people come from? Who are they? Why are they doing that? Why do they look like that? And we always moved in a space like we did not care what people said. And we moved in that space, and we can hear them whispering, but it didn't stop us from what we felt that we wanted to do and how we wanted to live. And I look at today, how I see what we were doing back then. I can look at the community now and I'm like, we've been doing that. we've been living unapologetically and living our life. Now community has caught up to it. I do think at some point, and just like the other ladies, I have had my traumas. I've sex worked for about over 25 years. That's all I knew. All I knew was survival. So that's why I have a connection to the work. So when these ladies or these men come to me, I understand what that struggle looked like, because I can honestly say I can help from a holistic way, because I don't know how it happened. And this is what I tell people. All I know is I prayed and I wanted change. Mm-hmm. And I worked towards that change. And that's how I got here. It can be done. Is it easy? No, it's not. Is it going to take some determination? Absolutely. And this is what I tell them when they come to me and they like, that happened because of you. No, I had to change the whole way I was thinking in order to lead to this place for me to be able to help you. And I believe this was divine, that I ended up in this position to be able to help our brothers and sisters. I really think it just was divine how I made it to this place. So absolutely. I think it had to be a purpose. It's because I can't even explain to you how I got here. I just know I got here. I can't even explain it. I just know I got here.
Thank you. Let me come to you, Toya. Go ahead, Toya.
Okay, quick one thing before we move into the next segment. One of the questions that people always ask, how do you know when you've had enough? What is that switch? What is that thing that has taken place in your life that lets you know that, hey, so just share with us real briefly about one of the things that happened, or or feeling that you felt when you knew it was time for that shift to take place, or what was that thing that pushed you into that arena that made you make that shift that I know is uncomfortable, because there are people that need to hear that, because we talk about healing so much and we talk about where we were in the past, but a lot of times we have mastered our flaws. We have made our flaws so fabulous that people right. desire them, So just be transparent for a minute and just share what was that switch? What did that look like for you, or how did it feel?
I know for me, I've been shot several times, and I got shot. It might have been about, 6 or 7 years ago. It might have been 5. But at that point, I was just kind of like defeated, because it was nothing that I had done And, you know, like this time I had never felt like I wanted to give up. And I also never felt like I didn't want to give up on life, but I just knew in the moment, like, okay, I'm done with everything that I'm doing. It's not good for me because I just can't be here anymore, right? I was thinking about like my mom, my family, and I honestly was not thinking of myself for a change. And yeah, so although I do want to lift up, we must also always realize that it's always a process, right? So there are a lot of events that are in that same time, and there are events from other times in my life that all kind of added up collectively to bring me to that point. But the vehicle that got me to really say I'm done with like toxic shit was being shot the last time, and just not I mean, just having the awareness that I had to give it over to God, which meant also giving over into myself and finding a sense of self and a relationship with God that helped me to understand how to move forward. So yeah, that was a switch for me.
I think the moment for me was during this, and it's very emotional for me because I started tearing up as you were asking the question. For me, it was during my last go round with incarceration. And my sister had brought my niece to see me, and they wouldn't allow them in for some other stuff that was going on. And my niece was on the phone when I had called after they had denied them the visit. And she says, Auntie, the police wouldn't let us come see you at school. And so later on, reflecting back upon that, it was, I can actually remember the moment, like Tatiana was talking about, praying and asking for God to help change. And I got down bare on my face, completely naked, laid myself prostrate on the floor in that cell, and I cried out to God and I said, I can't do this by myself. I surrender to you. And in that moment, it was like everything was shedding. And I can remember the very next day, the reentry person coming and knocking on my door and telling me to get my stuff together and they were going to let me go home. And so for me, that moment kind of trickled and snowballed other moments. And it was like reverting back and recognizing the fact that I was a veteran who served honorably in the military. I had a master's degree in human resources management before life happened. Mm-hmm. And so it was just like those things and that change, but it was a fact of the matter of recognizing that there was a purpose for my pain and there was a purpose for all of the things that I went through, but also stepping outside of myself, like Jasmine was saying, recognizing that I don't live my life for my own. It's not just about me. There are other people, my nieces, my nephews, my children who look up to me, who, you know, if I decided that I wanted to give up and continue on in my mess, that they could just say, you know what, hey, I'm done. And so just recognizing that my life wasn't just about me and that I had to consider other people as well.
Thank you.
I would have to say for me, coming from the South, and if people really know the history of South Florida, my very, very good girlfriend, Pilar, was killed right in front of me. And after that, a few other girlfriends were murdered as well. I knew at that point that something had to happen. I just didn't know how it was going to happen, and I did not know my way out. And someone that has experienced domestic violence, and me being a part and doing survival sex work, the clients started to have all of these expectations, and there were expectations that I could not see myself doing. Some people would think that when we are involved in sex work that we don't have morals and values, right? And I've always had something that I'm like, no, that draws the line for me. And I knew at that point, in the terms of events that was happening, I knew I had to do something. And as Tatiana said earlier, I prayed because I was like, I can't do this alone. And through that prayer, I found myself in places to be able to do the work that now I see I was called to do. And that's how I navigated, you know, and I was introduced to these places. And I would have girlfriends would say this, the ones that are living, they was like, oh, you going over there again to volunteer? Oh, you going over there to do what? You not getting no money, girl? Oh, girl, you wasting all that time. And I told them, for me, it wasn't about the money, because I'm like, we need help. I want to be able to get something from them, because I would sit in these spaces and I will be the only Black trans woman in the room. And I'm like, where is my sisters? I'm like, they need all of these resources, but where my sisters? They're not here. So for me, I'm like, you're going to have to make that change, because you are dealing with them. And that's, you know, that's how I wind up. But that was my turning moment. Just life did it. And I was paying attention, looking at the signs, because if I didn't change, I don't know if I'll be here. Life did it. Life was that determining moment. And, you know, and I too, I'm like Jasmine, I've been shot. There's a lot of things that have happened that I never disclosed, right? But life did it.
Wow. Ooh, wow. Okay. Yeah. For me, it was more my sister Tatiana Moten. We have been friends since we were 18 years old, and just being able to exist. For me, I thought that living life was measured by what I had or what I owned. And once it got to a point where I was able to secure the finances that I thought I needed to live, that I thought I needed to exist. Because early on in life, I do believe and understand that we all come from a time where our gender wasn't an issue if we had value, things of value associated and attached to us. So it became addictive, because I didn't want to be a victim of violence or being bashed or things of that nature. But I know me being able to have those exclusive things separated me from others. And my attempt to get those things were the things that endangered me, put me in jail and things of that nature. But it wasn't until I really started to circumcise myself, circumcise my internal thoughts, who I am internally, and realize that the void I had needed to be filled in a spiritual way. I started to realize that my purpose in life was connected to me being connected to the person that gives me life, that gives me breath. Advocacy was something that just happened for me, but I'm more of a spiritual healing agent. My service and my agent of healing is just being able to make sure that those around me are protected and connected. And it wasn't until I accepted Christ in my life for the second time to where everything started to make sense for me. You know, it started to clear things up. That void was filled and everything in my life was repurposed, because I was moving more with a level of awareness and intentionality. And I understood that gender and spirituality was two different things, and gender and sexuality was two different things, and that we are spiritual. And when I was connected, and when I began to connect to that spiritual place, it unveiled a level of happiness for me and a level of truth. And because of that, I was able to minister in a way that wasn't my intentions, but that's what happened. And that's when some of my connections with my sisters that's on this call repurposed themselves. We all knew each other, but once that spiritual thing happened within all of us, and we identified who we are and whose we are, we began to navigate in a level of awareness and truth. And I think that's the thing that have reshaped and repurposed all of us. And I'm just grateful that we all traveled on that journey together. And that's a beautiful thing for all of us to be here now, in spite of what we've been through. We're actually changing the trajectory. We're changing the way people see us. We're changing the perception, whether we know it or not. Yes, we did have one thing that people had a perception or they thought, but the work that we're doing is changing it. And I appreciate being able to do this with the ladies that I love. One of the other questions that I wanted to tap into, well, one of the other arenas was leadership. A lot of times that word is so loosely thrown out and used and things of that nature. But I want to start by just taking a historical context to it and adding it to who we are. Because before we got to where we are, there were individuals that cultivated and inspired and paved the way, or not even paved the way, but showed us that there's a potential route that we may go down. And I had to ask this question because I look at so many of the girls that we have now that are on those platforms, and when they have these conversations, and the person that's conducting the interview asks them who was their inspiration or who inspired them, a lot of them become Cabbage Patch Kids. They just sprouted out of the ground from nowhere. And I just wanted to use this moment to just add historical context and pay homage to those individuals or a person that have paved the way for you, and shown you that who you are is enough and what you're doing is possible. So who do you look up to for inspiration? Name something that he or she have done that has given you inspiration.
I'll go. I'll go, and I share this story, and my mom probably will kill me, but I got to share this story, and I'm gonna say her. When with my mom earlier on, she had a problem with alcohol abuse, and I would see her go through that, and I was put into situations where people didn't think I was safe in that environment. And the state eventually took me away from her for 6 months. But during the time when she was fighting to get me back, she was still drinking, and I can see that she was visibly drinking. So after a while, moving forward, she decided to kind of like change her habits. And so I asked her, why did you do that? And she said, I wanted to save my family. And I seen where my mother come from. She started working, went back to school, and obtained her master's degree, and was going on to get her doctorate. And she was like, I'm going to retire, and I still think about it. And to this day, she's in the process of saying she don't know what she wants to do, and she's retired. So I can look at, I was just come up from a single parent. I can look at her model, and I can see how she was determined. I can see the resiliency in her, and I see that within myself, not to be defeated by anything. So I'd have to say my mother. As it relates to advocacy, Toya, this is a beautiful question. I came in and you look for help within the community from a lot of these women. And when we're talking to leadership, I'm a very strong individual, and it's a lot to take. It will take to lead me, and I will give people these opportunities. But what I so quickly learned is that I had expectations of a lot of these community members to give to me something that they did not have.
Yeah.
And what I had to learn working for CBO, that's where I got all of my leadership tools, where I got all of my guidance. And people like to say, if there's an ongoing joke that I say at work, and I said, the Pride Center taught me a lot. I learned a lot working here, and I did. I mean, you know, it maybe wasn't a woman or a man, but the way that they run their organization, they taught me what leadership looked like. They was gracious enough to invest in me and put me in a leadership role to cultivate that. So that organization, I have to say, my hat is off to that organization, because a trans woman not having a college degree, they put me in a position to supervise staff that cultivated me. I would have to say it wasn't a particular person, but a particular organization that was able to put that in me. I was able to look at my mother, and I was able to look at my life, and I'm like, you have been given opportunity to do that. So that, for me, I would have to say that organization and my mother has helped me to do what I had to do. As I said, I prayed, I ended up in situations, and I'm here.
I'd like to go next. I think that, so a part of my answer is like yours, Tatiana. Looking at my grandmother, my grandfather, my uncles, my aunts, my mother, I grew up in a very culturally rich Black family. My father was Japanese, is Japanese and white. So there was a lot of turmoil within like how I identify culturally. But I think that leadership was something that I inherently inherited through my people of color. We have all been leaders as Black people. all the way to the beginning of time, since we became the physical beings that we are. Our spirits and ancestors are leaders that still lead us today if we allow them. But I think for me, even I would have to say, like, when it comes to Fred Hampton, the Black Panthers, or Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, and then going down to somebody like Darnisha Duncan, who really inspired me and mentored me. But I think the one consistent or the common denominator through all of them was the God and the Christ and who those people are, right? I resonated with that because I was a leader in the church very early. I directed the mass choir, all adults, when I was like 10 and 11 years old. So I was used to leading. And I also knew how to lead selflessly, not selfishly, but selflessly, in a way that I considered the people I was leading. But I didn't always know why I did that. But God sent the people along my journey to validate certain things that I did well in leadership, and also to reform and reframe the negativity and the toxic ways that I had within my leadership as well. So becoming an adult and actually getting to where I am today, it's just been God, right? And the Spirit, and just like those whispers from the Holy Spirit and from the ancestors that I'm doing something right. I don't think that I'm inspired by almost everybody I meet. I'm one of those people that when I meet people, I find something good about them. And whereas when I was young, I would be jealous of people and I would be envious, and it would put my self-esteem in a terrible place when I saw somebody else shining. And as I got older, I understood how to look to people and be inspired, and how to ask questions, and understanding that being corrected is a gift, right? So just like surrounding myself with those people who have powerful leadership and who lead with principled struggle. So those are the people I've surrounded myself. But I think ultimately it's the Christ in all of them that have inspired me.
I love that response.
So for me, I guess both regionally and nationally, there are women who I draw daily strength from. And I know that it is not lost on me, the backs and the shoulders of the women that I stand on, like Lois Bates, Joy Hightower, Valerie Spencer, Marissa Miller, Darnisha Duncan, Ivana Cahoe. Those are women who were in the work, who were doing the work even before it became this kind of sensationalized and monetized thing. These were women who were willing to stand in the gap when, like Tatiana was saying, with her going into organizations and volunteering, even before it became a thing, before trans became this word within pop culture that was viewed as this fabulous, pretty thing. And it's not, when we are working within these CBOs and organizations, we're fighting daily to just survive. Where we come into places and spaces where we don't know if we'll have a job tomorrow. So I draw daily strength from those women, and even all of the women on this panel, because for a time I've lived in the South. So I know the challenges that are faced. And these women are fighting to change the face of what that looks like. And like I said, it's not lost on me the privilege that I sit in living in Chicago, but we still face challenges here. And so, like I said, for me personally, it is those women and who I am so privileged to be able to call my sisters, my mentors, my mothers, and, those things, and just those people who have, like I said, selflessly stood in the gap for others to be willing to fight for those things that we desperately need.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And all of you pretty much answered the question and in the way that's personal and the way that others can relate to, because it identify those key elements in others. But for me, I would have to say that everything that we do in life, or every level that we get to, there's someone that takes a maternal role. We have mothers, some of us has multiple mothers. If you go into a new job, there's someone that's going to take you under that wing and usher you in that leadership and that nurturing way. So every level that I have been in my life, I have encountered someone that have been that motherly figure to me, that nurtured where I was, whether it was when I was out crafting, I had a mother craft, when I was out, all of the things that I've done, I had someone that was crafting and someone that was supporting and feeding into that. But It's a hard question. That's why I want to see how you was going to be creative and answer. That's why I had you all answer first, because for me, that's one thing that I've struggled with. I've never been able to identify one person. I do believe that it takes a village to raise a child, and I do believe that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, take others with you. And like Tatiana said, there are so many women and so many leaders and men in the community in my life whose shoulders I stand on. When it comes to my spiritual father, Bishop Allen, when it comes to my trans mothers, Daphne Dupree and India Sherry, and when it comes to my fathers, Kieran Hicks and Arthur and Tyrone, and it's a plethora of people that have helped cultivate me and saw something in me when I didn't see it in myself. So it's every level that we get to, we're going to have somebody that's going to pour into us, and that's inevitable. Whether it's something you're doing negatively or something that you're doing positively, you're going to have someone that's going to pour into you. And I think it's very important that when we get to a certain point, we don't be so into ourselves that we don't pay homage and acknowledge those individuals that have created and supported or saw something in us that we didn't see in ourselves. And thank you, ladies, for sharing that.
Also, there's a comment in the on Facebook that I definitely want to go ahead and bring it to the forefront, because Ebony and I talked about allies and comrades. Comrades was the thing that of course, I know what the word is and what it means, but I never thought about it as far as our community is concerned until the conversation happened between the two of us. And so I saw this comment and I was like, well, should I save it? And I'm like, no, let's go ahead and jump into it now, because I think it's great. And then we'll, ask some more questions as it relates to leadership. But Christopher Johnson, aka Christopher Iman, says, how can the other leaders of the community be more involved directly or more aware of what's going on to assist? Not just a few of us, but more collectively. I stand with my trans community even before time is there, but wonder how can everyone be more involved?
I think that when it comes to support whatever or however it is most comfortable and natural for you to support, because we don't want to force you into doing anything that that is uncomfortable. And when you're already standing with us, that's a form of support that we don't even get from some people, sometimes our own families, right? So actually just being vocal and verbal about your support, but then just taking it an extra step to just think of something that you can do. It might just be helping one trans woman. You might have a friend who she may need some financial assistance, or she may need a job. You can hook her up with somebody that can give her a job. It could just be sharing this live, right? It's just doing something that comes natural that will help get us further on this journey. We are where Black people were when we first were integrated with white people, but we still had to suffer with the Jim Crow laws. And, we weren't being paid worth a damn. That's what we are as trans people right now in the world. And we need for people from our own community and other communities to stand with us. Unfortunately to say, like some of the white people had to stand with some of our great people like Martin Luther King or some of the other Black leaders to get us to tables we can't get to, right? It's good to have these conversations and these platforms, but we need to be able to get to even more tables that we have not yet thought about to make this a journey of completion, not one of incompletion.
I always have this conversation, and me and Darren need to talk about this every day. I love my sister to death, and this is one of the things we talk about. But to me, being able to use your privilege to uplift someone else. I mean, each of us have a privilege. Even if you regret it or not. Oh, some people say I don't have. Yes, you do. Everybody's not able to pass. That's a privilege for some people. Everybody's not able to be financially stable. That's a privilege for some people. Everyone is not able to have a family that accepts them. That's a privilege for some people. But it's us being able to use our privileges to and to involve others that don't have those things. Like, say, for instance, Toby is amazing. Toby has always been talented. And Toby has always been a supporter of me. Or Christopher has always been a supporter of me. And things of that nature. But it's to me, it's when you allow yourselves to step in front of someone and take that bullet from them or be that spokesperson in their absence. to me, that's one of the things that we can do to cultivate that change, to bring our sisters in. We know a lot of our sisters experience, a lot of trans women of color experience homelessness, things of that nature. Just being able to offer them food or allow them to come to your house, that's being able to be a comrade to me. A comrade is the one that steps before or steps in front of us to take the blunt or take the blow from the things that we're facing. A comrade is the one that stands in front of you. You know, not stand on side of you, just stand in front of you, because they're aware that I'm bigger than you. Nothing is going to happen to me if I stand in front of you. You know, that to me is what that separates a comrade from an ally and things of that nature. Just being able to be aware of your privilege and using your privilege to lift someone else up, especially our women, trans women of color. Tatiana looked like she was going to say something.
Oh, hold on, Tatiana. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there we go.
No, I agree with Jasmine and Toya. You all said it. You said a mouthful. But I think that what we can do, like when things happening with trans women, and it's important, that visibility and that participation, that's important, because community mobilization, that's what it looks like. So although something may not have directly impacted you, other letters in the community, but when we as trans women, when something happened to one of our sisters, and I want to say, Christopher, you do a good job at it. So I'm not talking about you. You do a very good job at it. But I'm talking about there's other people within our community, a part of, you know, the umbrella community as it relates to LGBTQ. They can do a little bit more for we can bring more awareness to what we are trying to do. Because if you all stand behind us and support us, that way we can get a bigger buy-in in community. This is why Black trans women are so disproportionately impacted, because people don't think that we deserve, or they don't care, or they don't think that we are even there. So we just need your support to show like, no, they're there. These are our people, and we support them in masses, not 1 or 2 people, but in masses. That's what it looks like. We need true community and support when it starts to mobilize it, and using platforms like this, like the lady said, using these platforms to help uplift who we are, what we're doing, and showcase, unfortunately, showcasing the trauma within our community is the only way that people can see that we need support and we need resources. So you standing behind us, it will give that look of visibility, because you can support us, you know, in our houses, like we're gonna speak about pageantry and we're gonna speak about ballroom. I go to all these venues and droves of people, full of support, room full of people. You know, one of our sisters or brothers, you know, get murdered. If we can have the same people that support us and give us all that support when we're doing these pageants and when we walk in these balls, if you all can stand behind us when shit like that happens, we gonna be good. We'll get the attention of the people that need to see us.
I agree, sister.
I will honestly say that I wholeheartedly agree with everything that all my sisters have already said, but I want to take it a step further. And I'm probably going to step on a couple toes when I say this. It is neither funny nor entertaining when you are sitting in other social circles and you're part of the other parts of this LGBTQ spectrum, and you are talking about or referring to trans women in unflattering and disparaging terms, or telling them our tea, or making comments like, oh, you know, that's a man, and all of these other things. I want you to understand and recognize and realize that you are putting our lives at danger. And when I say that, because I've seen it happen so many times. And when things happen within the trans community, and I will see my brothers who will say, oh, y'all doing too much. Y'all are asking for too much. And why won't you all just be quiet or wait your turn? And then like with the bathroom stuff that was going on in the South, and people who were within ballroom and within pageantry who were making Facebook Lives and say, oh, now y'all want to be able to use it and all this other stuff. And this was coming from our own community. And I don't know if you all have ever heard this quote, and it says, it is us today, but it will be you tomorrow. Absolutely. And just last year, we celebrated 50 years of Stonewall, and I was on a panel and doing a radio interview, and I was asked about how I would celebrate that. And I honestly told the host that I would not celebrate it, Black trans women and trans individuals in general and gender nonconforming individuals have been so ostracized and marginalized outside of celebrations of pride, but no one ever takes a step back to recognize that it is because of us that you celebrate these months. It is because the brick that was thrown by women like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, who were doing those fights. It is us that is on this panel who are your mothers, your sisters, your aunts, your leaders within community who will continue to fight for you, who sit at tables of funders and all of these other things who bring these vital resources back to you. So when you talk about how can you support us, stand in the gap for us. When you're having these private conversations and jokes and all of these other things that you know that you wouldn't do it to another woman in your life, why do you feel it is acceptable to do it to trans women? So so getting back to the crux of the question, stand up and fight for us in the same way that we would do for you. But just like Jasmine said, to your level of comfortability though.
I want to add one thing, you guys. I lifted up earlier Fred Hampton and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, right? And you just lifted up Sylvia and Marsha. And now let's lift up the fact that we are Black trans political leaders as well. And in who we are as Black people, if we go back to the Black print or the blueprint of it all, those political leaders that I named earlier all had Black people protecting them. Right. So if we were going out to march, there were people protecting Martin Luther King and gathering. And it wasn't about protecting them with violence, but protecting them with the support and the physical presence that just brought community, right? Because we do find power in numbers. So that's another thing that we got to start doing. We got to start protecting our political leaders. We have to start protecting our community leaders. The same way back in the day when, you know, a lot of the kids, if you and your gay mama, back in the day, my gay mama fought, and everybody, you had to fight, right? If one person got to fight, if somebody reared our mama, we fought, right? That was just as ignorant as it was, we were protected, right? And now that we're moving with purpose, we need to be protected. And we need to also follow what the ancestors have laid out and what our predecessors have laid out, our grandparents, our family, when it comes to moving through white people's rules, white people's government, white people's world. We got to support each other.
Yeah, you ladies said it all. And one of the things that's so disheartening when it comes to this piece, Tatiana spoke of how our counterparts in the community, or the other letters of the community, our brothers and sisters, how they will come together and they will all make fun of us or make us the butt of the joke. But at the end of the day, and the problem with that, and it's a deeper issue, because for me, in that particular moment, before them making fun of us or before them highlighting our shortcomings or revealing who we are, that's the only time they feel empowered. So them being able to do that to us normalizes their existence. And we have been the brunt of that attack for so long. Before we come into a place, this gay guy, he's being laughed, he's a gay, he's a queer, he's a sissy, all of these things. But once this trans woman is into the space, he's able to say, oh, well, this used to be that. So now all of a sudden he's normalized. He just was the butt of the joke, but now he's normalized. And I think we have for so long, and we're used to normalize or make others feel, and others that are inadequate, make them feel valued. And I think it's very much time that we step in and that we get the support that the ladies just were speaking of, the Jasmines and Tatianas. We do deserve that support. We are moving into another levels of leadership and politics and things of that nature. And we need the support of our community to be able to do so. Is there more questions from viewers, Michael?
There was a comment from J. Cole, aka Neil Dickerson, and he just said, "I just want you all to know how proud I am. You are all beautiful, intelligent, and favored. The stories alone are both inspirational and relatable. I'm so honored to know each of you, and I stand behind you all to further this journey to change our community and the world as we know it." Off later.
Oh, love you too, Neil.
We know you mean that.
Very much so.
Toby can give a free talent now as support.
Okay.
I'll take my support. I hit you up after the live, Toby.
You want him to dance for you. Another question is, this one here is a little What is one decision you as a leader regret making? I mean, because a lot of times we talk about how people look at leadership and they expect us to be flawless and that we don't make mistakes. And the first time that we do, we have everybody that's on our tail because they all desire our position or where we are at in this place or in the movement. So they can use it as a weapon if we acknowledge or own that first. So, what is one decision you as a leader have regret making?
Yeah, I'm really trying to think. This is a really good question because I really don't regret what I do and how I got to where I am because that's a part of my story. That's what got me to do what I do, and I'm gonna have to circle back because I'm thinking I said this earlier, so I could have really thought. Shit, that's a good one. The other ladies can go. I'm thinking. I'm just. That's a good one.
If I had to say if there's anything that I regret as a leader, it would probably be not taking enough time for me. I have poured myself so much into so many others to the point that I have oftentimes been left empty. And I know the whole self-care thing that I've oftentimes talked about this at conferences and on panels. And because I oftentimes get offended when people say, oh, you need to exercise self-care. And particularly when it's coming from white cisgender individuals within organizations and they talk about self-care. And I always say to them, don't talk to me about self-care until you can talk to me about job security. Because half the time when I'm operating in spectrums, these spaces of spectrums, I don't know if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. You know, so that's just the reality of it. So when you talk about self-care and take some time for yourself, honey, look. But on a, just on a holistic standpoint, I wish that I had taken more and saved some for myself. Like Loretta Devine talked about in For Colored Girls. He walked off with all my stuff, and now I'm left with nothing for me. Where is the part that belongs to me? So I think if I had to say anything that I regret as a leader, it would be not saving some for me.
For me, I spoke of privilege earlier. All of us have a level of privilege that we're not aware of. Sometimes some of us are, and we use that. But for me, early on in my stages of me growing into the leader that I am now, I was prematurely judging individuals because of what I expected or what I thought they should have and not allowing them to self-identify. So just being able to remove the judgment or not being able to prematurely place judgment or feel as though I know everything and I'm able to speak for this individual. That's one of the things that we have to remove as leaders. Well, I had to remove being able to just, openly accept and meet people where they are.
I got it. I was thinking it, but I'll say this. Like I expect people to be able to move or think how I think, right?
Yeah.
And I have actually pushed people and put people in positions that they was not ready for. Someone made a comment to me because I'm doing some board development. They're gonna kill me. I'm doing some board development right now. And they told me, they was like, you built up all those monsters. You made them all that. Now you going back trying to get them. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. Don't do it like that. Don't do it like that. No, because you're going to piss off the people. Now I have to go back around and try to teach them the way to navigate through the system. When I was cultivating them, getting them ready to mobilize, I'm like, when we in these spaces, we got to do X, Y, Z. You need to do X, Y, Z. Call them on it. If that's how you feel, say it. Now I'm having to rethink that, revisit that, because now in the organization, it's like, these are my people and they are a reflection of the organization. So I think now that's something that if I had to do it again, I would change the way I was grooming my monsters. I'll say that. I would I would, yeah, absolutely.
So
Anisha taught me that.
well, I was gonna say, I think for me it's kind of not the same. It is the same, but I wouldn't. That's my regret. My regret is being a leader and setting up my organization going by white people rules, because that's what I was used to doing. And that's what my family was used to doing as Black people grew up on the South. I have a regret of judging and looking at my staff crazy when they do certain things, because that's how Black people have always looked at folks. Like, those are the regrets I have.
Yeah.
I don't want my staff. Even now, I'm a very polished person and I come off that way, right? But I have another side to me. And I expect for like my staff to show up the same way. But for me, I'm learning like, hell no. They need to show up how they are for real, how they naturally are, because Black people need to have a voice, and it needs to be the real voice. It doesn't need to be this polished bullshit, because when we get to the house and we can't feed our families and we can't feed ourselves, or we having to do survival sex work, all the polished, poised personas have gone out the window.
Yeah.
So, you know, my only regret is like just doing bull crap, like having rules and systems in place. Like I was at Black Girls Rules conference, shout out to Black Girls Rules. And somebody had to call me out because we were talking about like hiring processes for nonprofits, right? And I said that I would prefer if you had a diploma, high school diploma. And but it wasn't required. But as we kept going back and forth, I was even saying like, well, I would probably, you know, look at them a little different. And if it wasn't for somebody calling me out, like, how dare you? You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have never realistically looked at the people that work for me already. I didn't even know if they had a diploma, but I had these rules and systems in place to spout out when I get in front of people, right? Or even that now I speak at colleges. I get paid $3,000-$4,000 to speak at universities, and I have a GED. So who am I to try to hold somebody to a standard that I didn't let hinder me, that I superseded, right? So that's my regret. It's just like doing white folk shit.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, ladies, for answering that question. Those were the answers that I wanted to hear, because that's one of the things that we as leaders have to do. A lot of times we will repeat the behavior that we have saw damage others. And that's one of the things that we have to be mindful of, that judgment piece and the piece of yeah, those are the things that we need to be cognizant of when we are inspiring and cultivating ladies, because ladies are on our they're going to mirror our behaviors. They're going to mirror the things that we see. So we need to be cognizant of what we're putting out into our communities, into our organizations, and to the framework of our organizations as we're building and creating them. This one here, this probably will be the last one about leadership. What would you say is most important to your organization mission, core values, or the vision?
I'm not going first every time, y'all.
I'll go. I think it's all important. Especially someone, I'm in the process of doing organizational infrastructure development that has something to do with board consultants, HR consultants, financial consultants, and we're revisiting all of that, even down to the bylaws. I think all of it runs hand in hand, but I think that your mission and your vision has to stay up front. You know, although we do have our values, but that mission and that vision stays up front for me, because the vision, that end goal, is important, because that's the reason why we do it. So if I had to choose one, maybe the vision, because that's the reason why we do it, to make change, to create change, to dismantle these systems that have been put in place that say that we can't. So yeah, it probably would be the vision for me.
Oh, hold on, Tatiana. Oh, there you go.
For me, and this is of our particular interest, even doing consulting work, when talking about like board development and helping people to start their own nonprofits. I think that one of the most important things out of the three would have to say would be core values. Because not everyone who will come to your organization is mission driven, and recognizing that is a thing, because everybody thinks that everybody's coming to organizations for the same reasons, and that's not true. But not demonizing people for that fact, because there are people who are there simply to get a check and go home. But if you are there and you have what's the most important to your organization would be your core values, those are things that you can always fall back upon. This is the basis, and this is the foundation that we're built upon, because visions are nice to have. And I think that everybody should have a mission and have a vision for where it is that they want to go, because those things can kind of change. And those alignments oftentimes, will meet and intersect in ways that are unpredictable. But if you have your core values that are essential to your organization, those are things that people can always tie into their everyday work. Because even like being involved in HIV service delivery work, how is it that I am translating to a person who's working in my call center, how they are tied into the mission? But I can understand and help them to see how it is that the core values of my organization are tied into that. And so through that process, I can tie them in to help them to see that, hey, this is the way that you are impacting people who are coming into this organization, and tie that into the mission. So for me, it'd be core values.
I would have to agree with Tatiana. For me, it would be core values. I think that first, I like to always say that people join people. People don't join organizations. People don't join causes. People join people. You can support a cause all day long, but it's a person that's going to make you get out and march. It's a person that's going to make you give your money. So core values will be associated with leadership, but also associated with that person that gets people to join an organization or to even work for an organization. So the core values is not only how you show up as a person that's a part of an organization, but it's also about how you show up as a leader. But more importantly, how the organization shows up in the public forums and the public spaces that we go to fight for values, right? So along with those core values being aligned properly and the organization showing up properly, you will garner employees and participants who have missions and who have vision. And if you're truly cultivating leaders, then your mission and your vision should change, because if you're addressing the problems and the gaps in the community, we would hope that those problems would subside, and we would hope to alleviate some of the trauma and some of the stress within the communities that we're trying to serve. So the vision and the mission, like Tatiana said, could change and hopefully will change. But the core values should be consistent, and they should be common, and they should be something that is very, very explicit, so that the people who work alongside the people who started this organization, those core values will keep everybody grounded and resonated. Keep everybody grounded, and people can resonate with each other, right? Because within this work, we know that we don't always agree with each other. We all do things differently, but if our core values are the same, then the mission can be accomplished and the vision can be seen, and it can actually be laid out and hopefully accomplish it for us.
I agree with all of those, but I would have to say it's some organizations' missions that really stick to me. Like one of the things that made me gravitate to the work that Darenisha's doing at Take and made me jump aboard as the director of programs for Take is the mission statement. It's working together as a community to improve the quality of life for trans women of color by increasing needs and accessibility. Because that mission statement ties into so many of the issues and the barriers that we face in the community, it's very hard for me not to gravitate to that when I see that's being done, when I see how everything is set up to make sure that the needs for the ladies are being met, from the emergency crisis housing to the food services to the transportation services, to make sure that the clients are being able to go to doctor's appointments and being able to go to go into whatever it is that they need. Transportation is provided, food is provided, If you call at 2 a.m. and something happens there, Anisha's out of her bed or she's calling me, well, go with this girl. Made me look, it's 2 a.m, but that's the mission. That's what I signed in for, you know. So when I think about that, there's not many organizations that's doing that. So that mission alone is the thing that separates the work that's being done at Take. And I appreciate that, Renisha, for being so considerate of the community and considerate of the needs of the ladies while crafting this mission statement.
And also, Darrenisha has taken the needs of ladies nationally, such as ladies on this call, and brought us to tables, and she's mentored me closely. So, you know, her work has gone beyond the city limits of Birmingham. She's a wonderful individual.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I give shouts out to her. But when I think about core values, because as I mentioned earlier, and you all are helping me, right? Because this is what I like. When I come to spaces, I like to be able to take something from it, and I'm taking something from you ladies because now I'm doing work in this process. And you might can see my head thinking because I know my core values, right? But sometimes the people that come aboard, and I'm thinking they understand what the core values is, and I'm realizing they don't. I'm thinking when I'm thinking about my core values for the organization now, and I'm realizing because now you all are really making me think about, you know, what all of this look like, and I have to go back to the table and start talking and having some real conversations. So I thank you, ladies, for that because I'm thinking and I'm twirling and I'm like, yeah, I know my core values, but I got to make sure that we all are on the same page and that
your mission.
So yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. But Darrenisha, yes, Darrenisha is awesome.
Let me ask you a question, all of you ladies a question. Are any of your organizations tied to larger corporations? Or do they provide you the space to go and speak and things of that nature?
Baby, been there, done that.
I mean, yeah, a lot of us are funded from larger corporations like
funding. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, like a lot. There's an influx of like pharmaceutical companies coming into the organizations and coming into the transgender communities now and pouring in finances to be able to create programming that's able to shape the direction for ladies to move forward and be more successful and eliminate barriers. In that regard, yes, but not when it comes to the sponsorship dollars from the Sky Vodkas and the Absolute Vodkas like we see at the pageants and things of that nature. No, because the work that we do is not as glamorous. I mean, at the end of the day, there is still a certain undertone that's expected for us as trans women of color. If we're not providing a service or we're not entertaining, there's still there's still barriers that are put on us. So that's one of the things that we did experience in ballroom and pageantry. They were acceptive of us and supportive of us because we were creating a level of entertainment or providing resources or creating money for them. But we don't get that corporate support when it comes to the work that we do within changing laws and fighting for equity within trans women of color. I mean, how dare you say that you're equal to us? That never was their vision for us. And that's the thing that we fight against daily, because even though we have these conversations and we talk to each other, we can get off this call right now and we'll be confronted with a situation that reminds us that there's still work to be done. We're not as evolved as we thought we were 5 minutes ago, because there's still people there's still community members that want us to be stuck and the way that was convenient or comfortable for them. So no, we don't get that.
Yeah, no, the reason why I asked is because with my company, the company that I'm employed by, I've been employed with them for 12 years. And they have an organization called Globe. And Globe is the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender employees of that company, and they're allies. And so the objective is for them to address the needs and the concerns of employees who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender. And their mission every day is about promoting an inclusive workplace and exists to drive key to inclusion initiatives across the country. So there's many events that they have that I've been a part of in New York and in New Jersey. But I've not been with the company 12 years. I started in Atlanta, then I moved to DC, and now I'm here. living in Jersey, working in New York, of course, and I haven't really seen. I've seen a lot of people. I've been to many conferences. I've never really come in contact with someone of trans experience in that space. So I just and even when we go to those events and I see gay people, I see lesbians, I see bisexuals if they identify as that, but I've never seen a transgender employee. So I want to do some work on my end. That's why I asked the question. I want to do some work on my end with the board of Globe to see if we could, when we are able to get around and have conferences or things in different states or whatever, because the company that I work for, trust me, is all over. You know, it's everywhere you are. And so I want to make sure that we are able to, if possible, bring people from the outside or organizations from the outside to become part or partner with. Verizon. I know that, well, I already said the company, but there's funding, you know, there as well. That even being a part of your organization or helping your organization, that I will be able to, you know, as an employee and as a member of this organization, be able to, you know, filter money or fund money into your organization. So that's the reason why I asked the question.
But no, that's what being an ally does. That's what being a comrade represents to me. You're using your privilege to make sure other ladies get in the door, to be able to erase that employment gap. You know, being able to use your platform to get a girl a job, or be able to use your privilege or your position with your company to make sure that they can support the work that your sisters are doing. That's what that looks like for me. And that's something that we don't talk about a lot, but that's one of the levels that's very important for us in the work that we do, being able to shed your privilege and your platform to include us in those conversations.
I was thinking you were talking about fiscal sponsorship. That's something different. But yes, absolutely. I agree with Toya that it's great to, when you're an ally or a comrade, not only leverage financial privilege, but power privilege is something that people don't really leverage for us, right? People will give us money and funding all the time. But when you can leverage power that you have because of your privilege to garner us some type of attention, because we can do the rest, that's even better.
And for me, you know, I'm a part of the human and resources organization within the company. So I want to be able to, you know, I have a great relationship with my vice president. So I want to be able to, you know, start sitting and have conversations and make sure that when women or men of trans experience are wanting to, because, you know, you come across a lot of the times that, you know, oh, I'm scared, or how they're going to treat me when I get into those spaces as an employee. And, you know, and also having those unconscious bias conversations to make sure that people are, you know, ready. Like if a person with trans experience comes in the workplace, they want to feel safe. They don't want to feel like everyone's, you know, looking at them, talking about them, this and that. They want to feel as equal as the next employee. So for me, I want to make sure when I start to have these conversations with the Globe Board or with my vice president, is that we do make sure that, and me promoting that, yes, come and work for us, you know, and that you can't come and work for us. You can come and work and feel included. You can come and work with us, rather, I don't say for us, but work with us and feel safe, you know, and feel just like anybody else. So I'll definitely take all of what you ladies have said, you know, into mind and move forward, you know, especially with this pandemic. I have a lot of stuff that I've been thinking about doing. So I'm glad you brought it up. Go ahead, Tatiana, you had something to say.
I want to speak to the funding piece, because I think because I'm all about branding and the funding piece. I'm all about branding and marketing. I think that's important. But when we're working in the community, I always tell people that we have to be able to have the tools that we need in order for us to improve our work. And when we start creating, because people buy into what they can relate to. So when we start, that's what they do. When we start structuring, and a lot of the work that we do is centered around Black and brown trans identified individuals. And some people are not connecting with that all the time. So for me, it's important when we are branding that we kind of attract the masses. I think we have to figure out what that looks like. You know, I don't like to have to conform in order to get attention, but sometimes we have to think about, if we want to garner the respect and gain some equity, there are some things that we have to change in the way that we present ourselves. And a lot of funders are attracted to those larger entities because the way that they present and they're able to relate. So we have to figure out, what does that look like for us within the trans community as it relates to how we are being viewed from the public, because that's what they buy in. So when we are posting these pictures, when we're creating our websites, when we're doing all of that stuff, and it's important that you showcase and highlight the diversity and the inclusion of your work, because if they're going and they're looking and they're only seeing one demographic or one community and one population, they're like, okay, that's cute. But when they're looking at it and someone can identify with somebody that they can see, that they can relate to, you get a better buy-in. So, and this is why I go back to the organization I work for. The one thing that they taught me is everything matters, regardless if we want to believe that or not. All of it matters. Perception is everything. What you look like is more important damn near than what you're doing. From what I see, what it looks like to them is what they buy into, and people want a return on their investment. So in their thought process, if I'm giving you something, what I get back from it. So, and a lot of us, once again, when it comes to Black and brown trans folk, they don't think that we're there. So they're like, okay, that's cool. But what do we get back? How are we going to be showcased? How many constituents you got? How you're going to expand on our brand? Because it still goes back to the business model. Yes, we're moving away in nonprofit that we like, oh, I'm here to give back. I want to work. I want to uplift my community. I want to pull the people out of the trenches. But at the end of the day, we got to keep it 100. Nonprofit has turned into a business. A lot of those funders, a lot of those people that buy into nonprofit want to see their return of investment. So we have to figure out what those tools look like. How do we implement those tools in the work that we're doing so we can garner that equity? We probably never get as much as they get, but at least we can get a piece. You know, we can get some. So we have to think about it, because I tell people we have to move like businessmen and business women. You know, my board, they told me today, oh, we moving too much like a business. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, if we're going to the next level, we got to, you know. They fell in love, like you ladies gave me, they fell in love with the core in the ground and the boots on the ground. And I'm like, that was beautiful. But we have changed. that was then we done changed. And they like, you acting like we a business. We is. So it's just a lot. I mean, we have to be cognizant of that. And that's when I speak to leadership. And a lot of these things, like Tatiana, I can feel you when you talking, that you know what you're talking about. And it's important that these are the things that we discuss in these rooms, right? We don't need nobody to come and tell us, go get them out to get on PrEP and get HIV tested. That, yeah, tell them that. But we want some real core values when it comes to us being built and what leadership look like, so we can advance the work we do and advance our community.
Now, I gotta step in, because I agree with you. It is a business. We need to move as a business, but baby, I gotta hit my people first, because I started off saying people of color, and I'm reversing. I'm going to black. Now, I've had trans women who have been white that have came and received services, and I give them their dollars and coins the same way I would anybody else. But anytime I show up, I'm showing up as a black woman trying to help black people. Fuck the funders who don't want to fund it. I'm sorry. Because it's just like with me. This is my second year in operation. I've gotten probably $350,000 worth of funding off trying to help my people, not because of the branding, but because of the core values, because of the mission, and because of the vision, right? And a lot of it is what you said, moving it along is the business that it is, but also knowing and understanding how powerful we are as Black business owners, how powerful we are within our community, right? So for me, maybe one day We Care will start helping everybody else, but it will have to be that I cultivated, and that was their dream. We have I can't do nobody else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the mission statement, our mission is definitely for trans women of color, Black women. We're in the South, we're in Birmingham. I mean,
you're black.
It is what it is. I mean, when we have to get up out the bed at 2 a.m. or when the girls need help, we don't get support from others. We have to do this. So our initial focus and our primary focus is our Black girls. I mean, we're the ones that's displaced, don't have housing, don't have the food, don't have finances. So it's our job to create that. So yeah, that's the mission statement, and that mission statement is clear, and it frames everything that we do. It shapes what it is we do, and makes sure that others are aware. So when they hear the word take, they already know what's going forward. They already know what's being done. They already know we're in the South, we in the Jim Crow, racist ass South, and they already know that they don't hear about some of the things some of the issues that take place because we didn't already combated them before they become something big. So our Black women are our priority.
And let me say this too. I don't want to take up too much space, but I do want to say that we as executive directors, we as senior management, we as political leaders, and when I say political leaders, no one understands that I am intentionally talking about us leading the real people, the community. It's a long way to go before you get to your federal leadership. And for Black people, it's a long way to go before you get to your mayor and sometimes your county commissioner, sometimes your local representatives. So as political leaders, we also have to be intentional about not only trying to get funding to help our community, but hiring our own people. Because if we don't hire them, ain't nobody else gonna hire them. And guess what else? The same way we hear stuff, and we be like, oh, this white folk shit. We got to have some nigga shit and some Black folk shit going on. So we have to hire our own people so that Black people can know what it's like to say, I need a self-care day. Because a Black person can't go to their job in McDonald's and tell them they need self-care. That's a privilege that we have. In order for us to leverage that, we have to employ our people, and we have to make provisions for them to know what it's like to have a quality life. Not just, you know what I'm saying, scripting and scraping like our parents and we have watched Black people do for so long, especially when we're in a position to change it, right? Yeah. That's true change.
And I agree, Jasmine, you said a mouthful. When I was working in Atlanta, living in Atlanta, I was involved with so many different projects and organizations. And I just didn't see in that moment or in that time how that represented who I was, and I would talk to Darrenisha because that's always been my sister for years. And we would just talk. And I was like, girl, I'm done with this. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm not. I don't see where this is advancing my people. This is advancing the women. She was like, well, girl, you have to just don't give up, girl. Just don't give up, girl. I'm gonna see what we can do at Take, honey. I'm gonna see what we can do at Take. And I'm like, oh, girl, oh, sister, I don't want to get into the work. She was like, no, you're too powerful and you're too impactful as a leader. We can't let you just remove yourself from the work. You have to move. You can't remove yourself from the work. And she started talking to me about the position and different things of that nature. And I would call my sister Tatiana Moten, and I was like, girl, I don't know, sister. I don't know. She was like, well, girl, she said, well, sister, you can't say no. It's already been affirmed by God. You have to move. You have to move. I'm like, girl, wait a minute, honey.
You have stuck in sense.
Baby, and me and her had that conversation. She was like, you have to go. There's a need that you're going to do what you need to do. God is going to use you in that space. And the reason why I say that is because prior to coming to Birmingham, I was already doing the work, but I was never getting even interviewed or being acknowledged or even being considerate of the positions or the roles that I'm in now. And I'm grateful for an executive director who saw Black and was pro-Black and wasn't worried about all that other shit. They just wanted to advance and elevate Black leadership. And I'm grateful that Darrenisha did. And she constantly does that. And, if it wasn't for her giving me that, I don't think I would be as involved in this work or in the capacity that I am now, because once I got here, I was like, oh girl, I don't want to do this because this is a lot. But after doing it, I understood the purpose, and it realigned everything that I was doing, and it made sense. But I'm all about Jasmine, pro-Black. You have to give a girl a chance, because if we don't, nobody else will.
Can I step in for a minute? Because I don't want to send the misconception.
No. Nothing geared towards you. I was just
I'm pro-Black. It's just that I'm and unapologetically so, I'm a businesswoman. I'm a businesswoman first. And for me, I don't just look at the funders within the transgender community. I'm thinking about funders that's going to fund outside of the transgender community, as Micah was speaking to. So for me, I still think about the business piece of it, but I would never, I got 2 staff that'll be hired after COVID is over now, and well, I shouldn't say this, but yeah, this is, I gotta be, you know, but yeah. Yeah, but no, I'm pro-black.
Girl, we know you the first fine black millionaire, baby. We knew, so we already know you got business, baby.
So I have a comment from someone from Terrell Love Dupree. You're not going to see all of it, so I'll read it from my phone. But he says, "Hello, ladies." He says, "Tatiana, you know that I work in the same field that some of you ladies work in, and I saw a situation unfold right before my eyes where an older transgender female was tearing down an upcoming transgender female in a public place and calling them a little boy and everything else. I later saw this individual on a panel speaking upon trans issues, supposedly giving advice to our community, and it turned my stomach. Now, Tatiana, you know that I filter funds into our community as well as employ our community. So what will you all say if you saw one of your sisters, whom is a leader, behaving this way, in a sense, tearing down what you guys or what you ladies are trying to build?"
And don't lie.
I mean, and I've said this oftentimes, like Jasmine, I just talked about this on the HRC panel that we were on for Transgender Day of Visibility. Dr. Mae Jemison made a quote at a conference that I was at, and it says, "Why fight for a seat at the table if once you get there, you're going to behave like everybody else?"
Hello.
And so in saying that, this comes into the table manners. So if I saw that occurring, first and foremost, it's not something for me to do in a public forum. I don't think all of our dirty laundry needs to be aired out in front of everybody. Let's make that clear. Now, if it's one of my sisters or someone who I, kind of have that kind of rapport with, yeah, I'll talk to her and tell her in a way that, look, but of course it's not going to look in the way that everybody wants me to say and jump on them and, girl, you shouldn't do. No, because we've all done it. Does that make it right? No. But at the same token, it's just one of those things, like, it happens. And we shouldn't shy away from it, but recognize that everyone has different stages of development and abilities. And I agree that because it's one of those things that seeing behind the curtain and you finally see that the Wizard of Oz is just this little video short man with a big voice. And so it's one of those things that people do because we've seen it. We've seen it where these people sit up on these panels and platforms and they talk very eloquently and they give all the advice on all things trans. And then in their little dark closet, it's like, girl, I really saw you. And so it's just one of those things that, yeah. And I just don't, so with all that being said, I will say this, that no one is exempt from being corrected and no one is exempt from people are human. And I'm not excusing away the behavior. And I do think that it should be addressed.
I think that absolutely right, Tatiana. Being corrected is a gift, but people don't understand that it's a gift that comes in a wrapping paper and a box that you didn't request, right?
That's right.
So if you ask for a gift, or even if you don't ask for a gift, you have to unveil that gift. You have to go and look at the gift. You have to assess the gift, right? So a lot of times, when we are being corrected, that is a gift, and how we take it can ultimately determine where it will have impact in our life. And if we don't accept it right, it can manifest in a negative way later when somebody else is trying to correct us, right? And hopefully we're surrounding ourselves with people who have our best intentions at heart. But with saying that, I will say that for me, one, I would have to actually look at like the intergenerational piece of it. Because depending on who the old school lady is, and depending on who that girl is in her life, that may be the love language that is needed to be used to get them to that vehicle of change. But if I was to just see somebody I don't know doing it, I would have to say something. But I will.
And you have before too. Let's be clear about that. Jasmine is that one.
Yeah, I'm the one that's gonna say something. And I was just about to say, I mean, I'm always like, that's one of the decisions that I didn't say earlier, is that I don't speak on trans people that abuse our community in these spaces that are supposed to help our women, and that are Black trans women themselves that further abuse our women. So like, yeah, I see it. And a lot of times I will say that we as Black people in positions of leadership, because we're still navigating in the white man's world and through white man's government, we have to watch what we say, or we won't be able to be where we are, especially if it's somebody that's in a position of power. And no one understands the oppressors want Black people, Black trans women to further oppress. The plan is not for us to be free, but for us to remain oppressed.
Yeah. And one of the things that we have to understand and acknowledge that either one of us as trans women, primarily trans women of color, have had the ability to be able to self-represent. What I mean by that is if I do something right now, it's going to be now, oh, this is what trans, I can go out and rob a bank. Oh, girl, trans women robbing banks now. We don't have the ability to be able to say it's an isolated situation or we speak for ourselves. We're speaking for the collective. And it's problematic that if a leader and the community doesn't understand that, so that's definitely a conversation that needs to be had with maybe her contemporaries, because like Jasmine said, it's an intergenerational thing. We even having conversations now about some of the older trans women revoking the word trans and things of that nature. And so that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother piece, but it's definitely a conversation that needs to be had because it's damaging and it's toxic. I do believe that, we all should have our personal spaces and we should have something for ourselves. But once we get into a public platform, or once you're deemed yourself as, once someone else deems you as a leader, because a lot of times that's not the title we put on ourselves. Others do. But once that is being done, you have to be cognizant of that. And you have to understand that your actions are going to represent others.
So we mentioned earlier about using the word leader. So, and just this is my thought process in the whole conversation. I think a real leader understands what feedback looks like, right? Yes. So that's to help you. That's not to say you're doing something wrong. You have to be open for learning. You have to be, now we all on this phone and we gonna keep it 100. I had to learn how to move in this community because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't agree with, that I wasn't trying to understand. And I had to condition my mindset. If you're gonna be a leader, or if you're gonna do this, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this because I was thinking about this the other day. I seen some shit yesterday. Then I said, if a bitch, this is what I say, excuse my candor. I said, if a bitch get clocked behind a mask, you need to just throw the whole transition away, right? So I was like, I should post this. I say, girl, if you post that, you know what happened to you? So when you are a leader, you have to keep in mind that you're not just representing yourself, you're representing a whole bunch of people. Yes. So you have to be mindful of the way you move. So if you see something like that, of course, I would go to her or him, whoever did that, and be like, this isn't the time and place for this. Because at the same time, I don't want you to see me as a leader treating my other sibling this type of way, because then I don't want to send you the message like that's okay. And then I have to check you. Yes. So we have to be cognizant of the way we move. So yeah.
That's why centering is very important. When people say y'all go with that stuff. No, but centering is very important. Being able to just, because a lot of times we're human. You know what I'm saying? So our emotions, and just before we type that thing, we have to step back and be like, oh girl, wait a minute, I can't do that. So it's very important that we allow ourselves to center ourselves and reflect where we are and where we were before, and those people that are going to be affected by our immediate actions. And I think that's one of the hard things to do for an average person or for the everyday person. But as a leader, it's your responsibility to do that.
Right. I think where you said center yourself and reflect on where you are in the present, where you were, right, where you came from, but also ultimately where you're trying to go as well. Yeah. Right. But what I want us to do, remember, is leaders and just as Black people in general, we have to be gentle to ourselves and forgive ourselves for a lot of things we go through. I don't know if y'all heard of post-traumatic slave disorder, but we are still, fighting against all of the things that our ancestors went through, those lessons learned, that tough love, that tough talk, all of the things that come with being a Black person that you just are born and about, right? You don't even know what to call it, but you just know it because that's what our people have gone through. We're moving through those. We're navigating through that. We're navigating through space as trans women who come from an earlier time. So we're moving through a lot of red tape. when we're dealing with each other. So I just think that we as leaders got to remember to be gentle to ourselves. And when we make mistakes, own up to those mistakes just as publicly as you make them, and make amends and really mean that. Be sincere about it, right? Principal leadership, like leading with intentionality and humility is the best thing you can do for your organization, your business, and your people.
That's why I asked earlier. Maybe I should have waited to this part to ask that question. What is one decision you as a leader have made that you regret making? And in the process of us having this conversation, we are all acknowledging or revisiting situations that we feel as though we could have handled differently. And that's one of the things that I want us to be able to do daily. You know, think about the things that we have done before and how us doing this differently today is going to be able to assure or to be able to enforce the success and the growth of us as a community in our organizations and the things that we are part of. That's very important that we be able to do that and center ourselves. And thank you, Terrell, for that, because that's something that happens a lot. And we all individually have this conversation with each other, but we never really have that conversation on a panel or in like this because
Right.
you know
It got laid out right quick.
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, that's something that we definitely do. Right now, of course, you know, COVID-19 is the thing that's really affecting us and affecting the way of life, the way we live, and things of that nature. I tell people all the time, I'm from New Orleans, and this kind of reminds me. It's not as well. It reminds me of Hurricane Katrina and how we had to shift everything. It wasn't a global thing, or it was something that we had to deal with in our community. And a lot of us were able to rebuild. And for me, that whole particular thing made me just reevaluate how I handle things moving forward. That was one thing that made me just, at that point, I had to identify that sometimes we gain things with knowledge. We gain things because somebody gave it to us, or we gain things because of a skill. And the traumatic piece was that individuals that received things or had things because somebody gave it to them, they were stuck. You know, they didn't know how to move. But those individuals that acquired the things that they had because of a skill, it was easier for them to make that transition because everything that we aspire is everything that we need is already inside of us. And we just need that source or that environment to be able to tap into. So with the COVID-19 thing, how do we keep our community members, clients motivated during this pandemic?
Well, when we say motivated, are we saying motivated just to keep going or motivated to follow the precautions that have been put in place?
All of those are necessary. Whatever you use your level of leadership or your platform to do. Some people inspire to just keep moving because mentally, a lot of people, we don't even have conversations enough about that. But the mental piece is more damaging now because you have some people that's just putting themselves in harm's way because they're not able to just be in the house or being able to be by themselves, you know. So that's a very hard thing. A lot of us suffer with mental issues and things like that. So just being able to give someone that support mentally or someone that's able to give them the proper or the necessary precautions that's needed. How do you keep your community members and clients motivated during this pandemic?
For me, it's pretty much just keeping my programs going and transitioning things to what appears to be effortlessly and seamlessly, but it's taking a lot of work and a lot of work and just changing. The programs that we do are mostly like in-person job readiness programs, healing justice sessions, all kind of stuff. Only thing that we have that we're definitely gonna have to do in person is our computer class. But like I have literally gotten with my staff and we have figured out how to do things virtually. Even our therapy sessions have been happening virtually. We are looking at how to keep them motivated to do therapy virtually because that's kind of different because a lot of people already don't really like
the attention span. Yeah, and the attention span.
Yeah. So like that's how we've been keeping them motivated. It's just like doing programs. And for me, I always like we talked about the funding piece and all of the money that's going to trans people. All my programs pay good. If somebody comes to something that we care is having, there's going to be a stipend. And that stipend is going to be a nice amount. So that also keeps them motivated, knowing that not only can they gain knowledge through our virtual sessions and that they can talk to counselors through our virtual sessions, but also they can get some financial relief through those virtual sessions. So basically, just keeping the programs going. That's how I'm keeping my ladies motivated.
I would have to say for me on that piece is walking the walk and talking the talk. When I was very transparent about the fact of attending, this was prior to the kind of social distancing and stay-at-home orders. I attended our awards ball here in Chicago and ended up immediately after testing positive for COVID. And so I felt a duty to be transparent about that, about going to get tested, about testing positive for it. And through that, I opened up myself to a level of stigmatism, a level of stigma, I'm sorry, that came from that. But I didn't personally experience that, but there were other people who have reached out to me who have kind of shared them testing positive for COVID and the experiences that they have had that are not new to people who are living with HIV. And so kind of in that same vein, people have been stigmatized in a way that, oh girl, I don't want to be around you. But like I said, I felt a duty to my community to tell them, this is what happened. This is how I got tested. This is what is happening. These are the experiences and the symptoms that I've had. So being very transparent, but also I can't find myself going to parties and being around people when I'm telling my children and my house children and all of them stay at home, but I myself am out and having a good, no, honey, I'm at home. The moments that I do venture outside, I got on a mask, I got on gloves. And so keeping my community kind of motivated by being transparent, living and walking the talk and talking, you know what I'm saying? Doing the things that I am asking of them. And so, you know, not having an expectation of them to do things that I'm not doing myself. And so that in that way, and also just being in contact with them, calling people and letting people know, look, girl, this starting to weigh on me. You know what I'm saying? In those moments that I may have, but even in all of that, the fact of the matter, one of my sisters who I purchased this t-shirt from, she made a post and it struck something in me. And it says, if you don't come out of this pandemic having a new hustle or a new idea or method of working, you don't lack time, you lack discipline. And so starting a very successful pastry business in the midst of a pandemic. And so letting people know that even during all of this, there are opportunities for you to capitalize off of. And that's why I bought this shirt, because it says complacency births failure. If I get complacent or get in a space where I'm feeling like, oh, this is just the way things are, then that's the way they will be. And so, like I said, motivating my community and continue to keep that positivity factor up within my community.
Thank you.
So as for me, this is a little deep, and when we're talking about motivation, because I oversee the Trans Inclusive Emergency Crisis Fund myself. So there's a lot of things that I see that kind of takes a toll on me in the community. And a lot of these women and men are not able to access their medication. So I've been linking people to care, in addition to providing them support. Lights getting turned off, them getting put out, me putting them in transitional housing, hotels, etc. So for me, I have to empower them, but at the same time, to take it back to healing, then what is left for me, because I'm looking at emails all day long of people needing assistance. And I try to provide as much as we can, given the capacity throughout the day. So for me, encouraging them, empowering them, and letting them know that we are here to support them. We have an array of services, from virtual meetings, you know, those Thursday meetings that started 3 years ago, people come to that group for support. So they found the virtual meetings to be very helpful in their healing during this time. We also have contact with a therapist to do therapy for people that are in need. So I'm thankful to be in a community that we have pulled all the resources together, so we could take they could take some of that weight off of me. So just just giving back some of the people that are coming to me, giving them back to the community that can help. So using the resources that we have to help them better navigate through this pandemic. So
Thank you.
Toya, let me add just, I was gonna say, we had a scare at our organization when it came to COVID. Our staff was exposed, and one person has tested positive. So we, of course, took the precautions. We had already taken precautions earlier with quarantining and, you know, closing down for a couple of weeks. But what I will say is what's been keeping me safe and keeping me able to motivate people to take precautions to be safe was actually an assignment that we had from our master class through AIDS United, where the Dr. Valerie Spencer had us to actually craft public health care messages, right? But we had to strategize and really dive deep into who our community was, how we sent out and received information. So there was like a deep dive into like what we wanted to say. And it came right at the right time because my staff really needed a public health message, and so did our participants, right? Because we needed to make sure we kept them safe and kept ourselves safe as well. So that assignment was like on time. But that's just like how we do, period. That's another way we keep our people motivated. Black Girl Magic, trans Black Girl Magic is something so serious, right? Just a phone call. I call Ebony something, well, Toya. I call Toya sometimes. Like, I'll call her and I'm just going off about something. She like, well, you know, you crazy. So just take a step back. And like after I talk to her, I'm like so good and I can go and do what it is that I need to do when I'm zinging, right? Because if I call Tatiana, either one of them, we gonna laugh. But even now, when I get with Tatiana Braxton, like at conferences, we always are talking like we are students, right? So that's how she has kept me motivated, just like through all of this, because we as Black trans people, we as Black LGBT people, we always facing the HIV and AIDS epidemic. So we've been in this spot before where we've had to take precaution, where we've had to educate, where we've had to decide if we wanted to take care of our health. So, you know, this is something we always have done.
Yeah, and you're correct. I think at this time, I think one of the things that has been very important that you have to understand who you are and what you bring to it, what you bring to the work that you do. I had to remove myself for a minute in the earlier parts of it because I know that if I'm not where I need to be, I can't give anybody else anything. So I had to make sense of this for myself. And in the process of doing that, I understood and had to look to and tap into faith. And I understood that this is not going to be forever and things of that nature. But what I realized was more important is how we rebound after this. So, you know, I would talk to Darrenisha. She was out, you know, still doing the do, bringing the girls to food boxes and, you know, bringing them to appointments and things of that nature, because those type of things still had to be met. They had to be done. But in the process of that, I was just looking at different opportunities that we could do to make sure that take still exists after this happened. So I was more in the process of trying to secure funding so we can move into the new building, so we can be able to support more ladies, get more crisis assistance funds, so we can be able to make sure more needs are being met, more ladies' needs are being met. So the leader in me was redefined or sharpened because I understood that the healthy messages and covering and the social distancing and things of that nature, everybody was doing that, but I had to understand that my role was more of a faith affirming role, and it was going to be with action. So my actions had to be to step in and reach out to the ladies and reach out to my sisters and brothers and just give them that support in the process of creating those stronger infrastructures that's going to be able to house and support the needs of my community after this clears up, because it is going to clear up. And that's one of the things that I realized, that being able to have a stable structure that's able to be there and that's reliable and there for the community once this does clear up. So Yeah, that's the faith in me. I know it's going to clear up. So I just want to make sure that those that are connected to me are in line with that, and they are stable and secure. Um, Micah, anything you wanted to add?
We're gonna thank you first and foremost to everyone that's been watching, that's been commenting. We appreciate you for those comments. I implore you and I challenge you all to make sure that you're sharing this live. A lot of the times, and I'll bring up a comment that I believe Kristen said, but a lot of the times, we look at these particular platforms, we look at great conversation. I see it all the time, and it's not being shared. It's not being welcomed as much. There's not a lot of conversation surrounding it. So for me, it's never been about how many. It's never been about the numbers for me, because for me, it's about you just being honest with who I am and being pure and genuine in my thoughts and my whole goal. So I firmly believe that as I say, you touch one. If I can touch one, or you all can touch one. That's what's most important. So I'm not concerned about the numbers, but one thing about it, one thing for certain, two things for sure. I'm always able. I know people a lot of times don't really like to sit and watch something because maybe they're doing something or whatever. But no matter if it's a podcast or if it's a live Facebook feed, afterwards, when people really have to take out time to watch, I see the numbers rise. I see go from 100 to 2 to 3,000 to 4,000. You never know who you can touch. So again, I appreciate all of you for still staying tuned in or joining in. I thank the ladies once again. I always be thanking them for wanting to be being a part of the conversation. Let me add that. So we'll wrap it up and we'll come to some posts. But there's specific questions that I want to ask, and it doesn't go along with it, but I want to make sure that viewers and the people that will understand what it is that your agency does. And more specifically, what are you? Because I feel like when you're employed by a company, there's many responsibilities that you may have, but there's always one that supersedes the other. So what is of all the responsibilities that you have, or what you do for your company or organization, what is it that takes precedence? And then again, goes back to the first question: what is it that you and your agency do for the community? Whoever.
Well, for me,
you said what does the agency do for the community?
What does the agency do for the community? And then what is it that of all the responsibilities that you have, like what is it that you enjoy more? What takes precedence over the other?
For us, again, We Care Tennessee in Memphis, Tennessee. I founded the organization. We address the social determinants of health. So basically, the common denominator of everything we do is we put money in the pockets of trans women of color. And we do that through job readiness programs. We do that through emergency funds. We do that through emergency funds for women that are incarcerated as well. We also give them tangible and hard skills that they can take on into the job place and do something with that and succeed in the job world. We also give out syringes specifically for hormone therapy. We have grants that are around harm reduction. So we do a lot of syringes that people use to shoot drugs, but we specifically give out hormone needles too, because we know a lot of trans women use the same needles and share needles. So, and what do I do as the executive director and the founder? I do it all. What I love to do is two things. I love to pour into leaders and give as many people jobs as I can from my community. And I love to write grants. I'm a firm believer in, writing the vision, making it plain, watching it come into fruition, and then celebrating the fruits of the labor, only to do it all over again. And that's my favorite part of being the executive director.
Okay. Thank you so much. Who's next? Anyone? Tatiana M, Tatiana B?
I guess for me, and most of the ladies on this panel will tell you I wear many different hats. The organization that I am currently employed by is based out of San Francisco. And so They are a federally qualified health center. The role that I specifically embody is as a senior capacity building specialist. And in that, I work with state health departments on their programming for prevention with positives. And in that role, I think that it is vitally important for me to center trans individuals. And as we said many times here, what takes precedent over all of that would be that of Black trans individuals. And so when going into state health departments, my immediate thing, and we're just coming off of jurisdictional assessments. And so whenever I would go into these state health departments, I specifically asked, what kind of programming are you doing for trans individuals? And so, yeah, in that way, and like I said, wearing the different hats that I do, I started my own consulting firm because of the fact that I didn't see myself in the work. I would be employed, we would be employed by other consulting firms and not get the bigger contracts. And so that's why I started my own and empowered and started pushing that work to other people and funneling that work to other people with both myself and my business partner, Marissa Miller. So that's what I do.
Yes, with Trans Inclusive Group, it started off as a support group. And the beautiful part about it starting off as a support group, people were coming to the group as a support group and started needing resources. And that's how we developed into an organization. So we provide HIV testing, case management, healthcare linkage, name and gender marker change. And a lot of our services are free to people that can't afford it. So if you walk through the door and you say you need something, we're going to make sure that you get it free of charge, because the way our programs are set up is set up for underserved communities. So we have funding that comes from an array of sources, so we can keep that funding pot with money. And a lot of our fundraisers, the money goes into that pot. So pre-COVID, we already had funding. However, the influx of calls put us in a situation where we had to seek out additional funding because it was pulling a lot of funding, but we want to still be able to serve the community outside of COVID, because a lot of our community members really need the help. We provide housing, do hotel stay, we do all the above, and there's some new stuff that I don't want to discuss right now that will be happening after COVID. It was already in place before COVID, but I want to just let you get over it, and I'll announce all of that later. But yeah, that's what we do now. And the one thing that takes precedence of it all for me is I'm an advocate at heart. I love the advocacy piece of it. I mean, when I'm in spaces, just being in spaces where a lot of people can't get to, because a lot of people don't really know all the work that I do in South Florida. I sit on a many boards in South Florida and through the state of Florida, and now they just added me to the Equality Florida Trans Council. So they're announced that lady, which is the largest, it's an LGBT organization that does a lot of political work. And I sit in a lot of these spaces, and I was able to get them to understand what resources were needed in the community. And here in Broward County, first time in Broward County, me sitting at these tables, I was able to advocate for them to fund 2 trans-led organizations here in the county, and that's Ariana Center and Trans Inclusive Group. So it's just, I'm an advocate at heart. I work very hard to do what I do, and I just love the advocacy piece about it. I love to write grants like Jasmine too, but girl, I be getting tired. But the advocacy piece, I be tired of thinking. The advocacy piece, that's me. I love that. Because I love having a voice for people that can't articulate how they're feeling, and they can articulate the needs, because a lot of our women, you know, they don't understand and know how to move through these systems. And I think it's important when we have leaders like us that know how to move through these systems and be able to speak on behalf of those ladies. So the advocacy piece for me.
I'm the director of program at Take Resource Center, which is in Birmingham, Alabama. Is that me making a noise?
No.
I'm the director of programs at Take Resource Center, which is in Birmingham, Alabama, which is it was founded by Darrenisha Duncan Boyd. I've been at Take almost 2 years now as the director of programs. Take was founded maybe I know the organization was pretty much got its first actual brick and mortar building in 2017, but it started as a support group. And within that, because there was a need for services and there was a need for a particular type of service to support a particular client, which is trans women of color, that those needs were not being met in Birmingham, Alabama, Darrenisha created Take Resource Center. And since the conception of Take has been providing emergency crisis service. We just opened a emergency crisis shelter, which is a housing, temporary housing program that's able to house trans women of color until they get in their permanent housing. We also have our daily drop-in space. Of course, that's now postponed because of COVID-19. But once everything lifts, you'll be able to come to Take Monday through Friday. The ladies, we have support groups every day. Monday, we have that's pretty much our administrative day where we come together and make sure that all of the topics and for the discussions in the groups are being met. But Tuesday, we have our support group on Tuesdays. Tuesday's group is really, really fun. That's our art therapy. So we usually try to take that particular time to help the ladies escape from what they're dealing with and use that moment to just use creativity and whatever it is that they feel and color it out or paint it out. So we use art therapy as a way to heal our clients on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we have unpacking, which is something that we do, and we try to find creative ways to unpack things. So what we realize and what I have personally identified is that if we're able to look inside of ourselves, every week there's something that we do that we don't like that we can remove to make ourselves better. So we use that Wednesday to unpack, and we cite that thing and we speak it out amongst each other and we put it on the wall. So that's one of the things that we do. On Thursdays, we have physical fitness Thursdays. I hate that, but everybody loves it. You know, we do exercise, we do Zumba. We've been doing yoga lately. Yoga's really fun. So we're getting the ladies to do yoga and things of that nature. And Friday, we're just starting to just do a creative historical piece. And we're just making sure that we tap into history, make sure the ladies are aware of the history and make sure they are cognizant of those individuals that created the change that's needed or created those things that we do every day that we didn't realize that were created. And I believe that once we understand that our true purpose in life, and we understand that a lot of the things that was being done, we created those things, we would erase that mindset of us being a minority. We were never a minority. We're from kings and queens. And if we shift that narrative and just start talking about the things that we have done that have shaped and shifted the Americas that we live in, I think it will give the ladies a better sense of ownership of who they are and their purpose in life. But like I said, we provide holistic support services, whether it's food, whether it's being able to meet the ladies for going on excursions. We're getting ready for our retreat, actually. Memorial Weekend, we'll be going to the cabin. So that's one of our healing retreats for the spring. I'm looking forward to that. We'll be going to Pigeon Forge, and we're taking like about maybe 10 ladies to Pigeon Forge to the retreat. So that's one of the things. Those things like that are the things that re-energize the ladies and give them something to look forward to, make them revalue themselves. And one of the most amazing things out of the many is being able to take ladies that once, I have conversations with ladies that once felt as though that they had to engage in sex work and not have ownership of their bodies, but being able to have a conversation 4 months later where they're cognizant and aware of having ownership of their bodies and being able to say, this is not something that I want to do. And having those political conversations and having that, giving them a sense of having political awareness to understand that you can affect, by voting, you can affect the things that that are around you. And so just having those conversations and bringing that sense of awareness it invigorates me, it inspires me, because those are the same ladies that other organizations in the area didn't see deemed fit to be able to give services to. But we have taken the time, and Darrenisha have created a program that takes the time to pour into those ladies and love on them and give them a sense of hope and inspiration. And that's one of the most beautiful things about the work that I do that keeps me energized daily. It's a beautiful feeling to be able to see a person that's lost and now being able to see the light in their eyes. Once you experience that, your life will never be the same. Yeah.
And we need to get that census done too, because we need to get them before we can get these resources in our community as well. Right. So that's it.
You don't have anyone knocking at your door at this point. It's in the mail, or they have the commercials playing on TV, and so I'm supposed to hit the airwaves. I mean, I went ahead and did mine, and then of course I got like 2 letters.
Me too.
At the time, but I'm good. And it's, again, thank you, Tatiana, for bringing that up. It's very important that you fill out that census, because a lot of what your community gets comes from the census. So I want to move to just like the last word. So I found now, Tatiana M, did you answer? I'm sorry if I missed you.
Yeah, I did.
So just the final words. First, for me, I just want to say thank you. I'm not going to say too much because I just enjoyed sitting here and basking in it, but also jotting stuff down in my notebook or whatever, because I want to do better, be better always. And so I can only do that if I really drill down on it and have that discipline to do so. So again, I want to thank you. Thank you for everybody that tuned in. You can share the live later. Those of you that are on YouTube, thank you very much for viewing. And anyone that listens to this via blogtalkradio.com or Apple Podcasts, thank you as well. I'll say my quote of the week. I'll say that to the very end after all of you say your final words. So at this point, I will tell everyone, make sure you wear your mask, your gloves, make sure you clean, do all those great things. You know what to do. They've been telling you, just adhere to those. And so I'm going to start with Tatiana, then we'll go to Tatiana M, then Tatiana Braxton, and then Jasmine, and then Toya, and then I'll do my quote of the week, and we're out of here. So just hold for me, and let's go ahead and bring Tatiana M on. There you go, your final words.
I guess my final words would be, first and foremost, I want to thank you, Toya and Micah, for allowing me this opportunity to be a part of this amazing panel with some amazing women who I love and who are near and dear to my heart. I just want to implore you all to continue to lift the voices of and empower the voices of Black trans individuals, because we harness so much power within ourselves. And oftentimes we're not asking you to see that. We just want you to respect it, the fact that it is there. And so, like I said, I live my life by a mantra. I will continue to fight, because I know one day I will encounter someone who is not strong enough to fight the battles that I may have already won. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So we're going to bring on Tatiana Braxton.
Thank you all for having me. I really, really appreciate this. I think that we need to continue the conversation. I do think that the conversation needs to go on because this is a part of that visibility that we need to educate our community. I just want to encourage each and every one of us to be safe and continue to do the work that we do, because without us, there's a lot of people that will not be served. And I thank you, ladies, for the great work that you do throughout the country. And yes, thank you for having me. And just be safe.
All right, so we're gonna go to Jasmine. Hold on, Jasmine. There you go. Your final word. Jasmine.
I'm sending it in the chat. I don't know if you all can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Well, she went off. Toya.
Yeah, I would like to just thank Micah for allowing us to use his platform to be able to have this much needed conversation. Thank you, Tatiana Braxton. Thank you, Tatiana Moten. I love you. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, ladies, for saying yes when I reached out to be able to have this conversation. I want to say thank you to anyone that have been inspirational or involved in me when I didn't understand what was going on with me or the shifts or the changes that I was making. And I didn't know that it would lead to this particular moment or purpose. Thank you to Darrenisha, and thank you to Aria Lester, and oh my God, thank you to a plethora of women for just being able to just pour into me and be the who you be the ladies and the role models that you are in my life. I just want to have this, just say that a lot of us, I want to have this conversation about leadership, because that word is so misinterpreted. And in order for a person to be a leader, they have to understand what healing is. You know, healing is the process of making or becoming whole or sound or healthy again. And it's not until you're able to heal yourselves, you can heal others. So it's very important that you take the necessary steps that you need to heal yourself, so you can be impactful and you can be that person that needs to be in others' lives, so you can be that agent of change. And just make sure that you are constantly connected to people who love on you and support you. A lot of times we're going to do things that we're not sure of or uncertain of, but make sure that you have a support system that's able to identify those things when you're not able to. And make sure that you protect yourselves right now through this pandemic. Wear your mask, wear your gloves, and make sure that you vote. Most importantly, make sure you vote. Voting is it's paramount. It's imperative that you vote, because we are able to make a decision about how we're able to moving forward for the next 4 years. And it is important that we have legislature, administration that's supportive of our existence as trans women of color, so we can have the freedom and the rights and the protection to navigate freely and harmlessly, unharmed, so we can be able to do the things that we need, so we can impact our lives and the lives of others around us. Thank you again, Micah. Thank you, Valerie, for the master class. Thank you, Aria Lester. Thank you, Take Resource Center. And yeah, thank all of my sisters for being on this call and saying yes when I reached out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Jasmine, we'll bring you back, girl. Jasmine,
I can barely understand y'all, but I think y'all can understand me. Just wanted to tell everybody that's listening, thank you. Tell everybody on the call, I love y'all. Each one of y'all have been instrumental in my journey of leadership, and I aspire to be like all of you in different ways on this call, including you, Micah. And just want to tell everybody that there's something out there for you to do, and God wants you to find it, and all you have to do is look within yourself. Continue to search the world for yourself. Continue to reintroduce yourself to yourself, and also continue to stay safe in this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope to see everybody.
Thank you. And so, my quote for the weekend, let me say that. Yeah, my quote for the weekend is simply: knowledge is not power, it is potential. Once the knowledge is applied, then and only then does it become powerful. Again, knowledge is not power, it is potential. Once the knowledge is applied, then and only then does it become potential. Thank you to each and every one of you who were a part. Appreciate you for being a part of this particular platform, and there'll be more to come. And for that, I bid adieu, and I will see all of you another time. So thank you once again, ladies, and have a great evening. Everybody be safe. Bye.
Bye.
Hold on. And you stay there.
I'm here.